أحب الله والإسلام أحب الله والإسلام أحب الله والإسلام أحب الله والإسلام.
Another issue that affects the rapid spread of Islam is the Arabian horse. The Arabian steed is the fastest horse in the world. Not only was it a fast horse, but also it is a high-spirited horse. And so this horse was able to travel long distances and able to face tremendous, and it gave the Muslims the ability to travel long distances in a short period of time. Another important animal was the camel. With the camel, Muslims were able to cross vast deserts and able to reach lands that were almost impossible to reach in the past. Along with this, the Arabs had mastered the seas, and historians report that Muslims had reached Japan long before the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. It is reported by historians that one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Uqba ibn Nafi', radiyallahu an, reached the Atlantic Ocean, and when he reached the ocean, he looked across. And he said, if I knew there was land across you, I would take this message. He also went south, and he reached Lake Chad. The Muslims went down into the East African coast. They found a base of operations called Maqadashah. It was the base of the Persian emperor, and so they called it Mogadishu. They came into a set of islands where the moon was very bright, and so they called them Juzur al-Qamar, the islands of the moon, and now we know Juzur al-Qamar as Comoros Islands. Musa ibn Baig developed a colony on the East African coast, and so Musa ibn Baig becomes Mozambique. Yusuf Ali develops a colony, and Yusuf Ali becomes Sofala. The Arabs went into the Indian Ocean, and using the dhow, they were moving their boats with what they call habal. And habal today is the cable. They used the astrolabes. And when they came into the Indian Ocean, they found a season of rains, a mosim of great rain. So mosim becomes monsoons. They wrote books of information, travel guides, to help people in the seas, and they called it almanach. Today we call it almanacs. They continued on, and Arabic began to spread and influence people so much that by the year 1930, Walt Taylor recorded approximately 1,000 words in the English language of Arabic origin. This was in his book, Arabic Words in English. Muslims made a profound impact on the world for over 1,000 years between the 7th and the 17th century. One of the strangest reports is a book describing the earth, describing different continents. It was written in the year 820 AD. The author of this text was Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi. He set up a series of maps. One of the maps contained the Indian Ocean, and another, surprisingly enough, contained the Pacific Ocean. The Arabic writing on the top reads as follows. It says, this map shows a large area of land surrounded by dark, stormy seas. You don't know its beginning from its end. Actually, Al-Khwarizmi was writing about Australia. And this is the oldest map of Australia in existence. It is now in the Strasbourg Library in Europe. And by the 10th century, another famous map maker, Abu Ishaq al-Farisi al-Istikhari, in the year 934, had drawn a map showing not only the details of the north coast of Australia, but he also showed details of Japan between Kobe and Tokyo. To add to this, even the ancient Aboriginal people of Australia recorded the journeys of early Arab merchants. And we find writings drawn by Aboriginal people in Australia that show two-masted Arab dhows in caves on the Stanley Island in Princess Charlotte Bay. This is in the northern Queensland in Australia. And so Muslims were able to travel to many parts of the planet. Information has even come to the surface that Muslims traveled across the Pacific Ocean. And they were able to reach islands, a set of islands, where there was a lot of wind. And so, according to the findings of a Harvard University professor, they called these islands Juz'a al-Hawa. It was the island of a lot of wind. And so Juz'a al-Hawa becomes Hawaii. They find pearls in one of the islands. And in Arabic, the word for pearl is lu'lu. In some pronunciations, lulu. And so on the map, it points and it says, Huna Lulu. Today we say, Honolulu. It is shocking to find in ancient maps so many Arabic words. Even in the United States, we find the word Mecca and Medina used over and over again. On one journey, we descended into the southern part of California. And we found a city called Mecca, California. And it had beautiful date palm trees, and it had some relics and some evidence of the presence of Muslims and Arabic-speaking people. But the people were gone, and the relics and the name remained. Similarly, we find along the coastlines in Central America, we find Arabic names. We find the presence of Muslims coming from West Africa. When we travel into Brazil, we find the presence of Muslims. We find words like Racif, meaning a coast or a sidewalk, being used in Brazil, and Arabic names. We find even in the Caribbean region a group of people who related to themselves as being Arabic-speaking people who came from the coast of West Africa. And so in many parts of the world, we find the presence of Muslims and Arabic-speaking people. This is a shock for many historians, because people are still caught up with the fact, or with what appeared to be the fact, that Christopher Columbus discovered America. Our reality is something very different. Christopher Columbus bumped into America on his way to India. And it is reported in his memoirs that he intended to meet the great Khan of India. His navigator, Rodrigo de Triana, could speak the Arabic language. He expected to meet the great Khan. And he bumped into a set of islands, and his son eventually went on to the coastline and went on to the mainland. And what happened after that was a genocide. We would like to look at history not only from the point of view of Europe, but from the point of view of all of the peoples of this planet. These are some of the untold stories from world history.